Part 1. Introduction. This sixth segment, entitled How to Perceive Communication, is another key piece of the Entrypoint academia puzzle. In the previous parts, we laid the foundations, how to view reality. We dealt with your operating system, your consciousness, and how not to let your brain control you. In how to perceive health, we tuned your hardware so that your body would have energy and function without malfunction. In the learning segment, we installed new applications and skills so that you could adapt to the 21st century. And in the fourth and fifth segments, we discussed energy, money, and how to effectively hunt your mammoth. But what good is perfect software and powerful hardware if you are not connected to the network? When you can't transfer data from your head to someone else's? Most people think that communication is about convincing someone of your truth, how to win a verbal battle, how to dominate a discussion. But that's a mistake, and it's a mistake that costs you a huge amount of energy, lost opportunities, and money these days. In this segment, I will introduce you to Entrypoint dialectics. It's not a course in rhetoric. It's not about how to speak nicely. It's a method that will change your view of what an opinion is. We will stop talking about impressions and feelings, and we will start talking about calculations and equations. If you want other people, whether at work, in business, or at home, to stop fighting you and start helping you hunt your mammoth, you need to do more than just watch this segment. You have to start living it. Welcome to the sixth segment. Today, we will look at communication through the lens of the Entrypoint philosophy. And as always, we will start by looking at reality as it is, not as we would like it to be. Before we start building, we have to tear down one myth that is deeply rooted in our democratic society. And that is the phrase, everyone has a right to their opinion. It sounds nice, it sounds free, but if we look at it technically, it's often just an alibi for ignorance. It's a shield which we protect our mistakes from reality. At Entrypoint, we say one fundamental thing that I want you to remember. An opinion is not an identity. An opinion is a calculation. Let's go back to the analogy from the first segment. Your brain is a biological computer. It constantly processes data. Information enters this computer from the outside. What you see, what you hear, what you read in the newspaper. But data also enters from the inside. Your past experiences, your traumas, your current emotions, the level of hormones in your blood. Your brain takes this data, it plugs it into its internal unique equation. It processes it according to algorithms it has learned over millions of years, and it spits out the result onto the monitor of your consciousness. We call that result an opinion. When two people meet and have different opinions on a matter, what happens in the normal model of reality? They start arguing about the result. One shouts, I got 4. The other shouts, no, I got 3. They take it personally. They get offended. It's battle of egos. It's a fight for dominance in the group. But from the perspective of Entrypoint, a different opinion is just a dry information. It is an indicator of an error in the system. It means only one thing, that each of them had different inputs to the equation or used a different formula. Maybe one saw something the other didn't. Maybe one has experienced the other doesn't. Or one is influenced by an emotion they are not aware of. When you look at it this way, communication ceases to be a struggle. It ceases to be about who is right. It starts to be about how did you come up to the conclusion. Imagine a complete trivial example. Someone claims that dog is spelled with a K in the end, and someone says it's spelled with a G in the end. This is not a matter of personal opinion. It's not about how anyone feels. It's about whether the equation follows the rule. When we explain why there is a G, it's not about winning the debate. It's about clarifying reality. Both parties come away smarter, and this principle can be applied everywhere, even where it seems subjective. Take food, for example. Cilantro. Some people love it, others find it disgusting and think it ruins the whole meal. When they start discussing why, they discover that about 7% of people have a genetic mutation that makes cilantro taste like soap to them. Both are right, they just have different inputs to the equation. One has the gene turned on and the other one has it off. Their biological hardware processed the same herb differently. And that's what Entrypoint dialectics is all about. Don't stick with the result. Don't stick with the tasty, untasty argument. Go back to the calculation. Once both sides do this openly, the results usually converge. Not because someone has imposed their truth, but because reality has become more accurate thanks to open data. But in practice, this runs into a huge problem. Our brain is not a perfect machine. It is a machine that has evolved over millions of years in the wild for tasks completely different from running a business or a relationship. And that's why our calculations are often wrong. There are 4 main filters, our 4 types of biases that prevent us from seeing reality clearly and calculating correctly. You need to be aware of these filters in order to even begin to communicate. The first is a cognitive bias. These are errors in the software, shortcuts that the brain takes to save energy. For example, confirmation bias. We only see what we want to see. The second is the past. These are scars on the hardware, our traumas and experiences that make us wear black glasses and forces us to see threats even when there are none. If someone has deceived you, you will suspect even an honest person. The third is emotions. This is the current tension in the network. Stress, fatigue, or euphoria change the meaning of the words we hear. When we are stressed, we hear an attack even in the greeting. And the fourth is conscious manipulation. That's hacking, when someone deliberately lies or obscures the truth to make themselves look better, to improve their position. If we don't know about these filters, we argue about illusions. We build houses on sand. Entrypoint dialectics is a method for revealing these filters, for sitting down at the table and saying, "This is my calculation, show me yours, and let's find where we went wrong." In the following long section, we will analyze this in depth. We will look under the hood of these filters and we will show you specific scenarios at work, in the family, and in conflicts, how to use these methods to stop fighting and start creating. Welcome to the detailed analysis of the 6th segment. We already know that an opinion is a calculation, and we know that this calculation is often distorted. Now we need to deep dive into why this is the case, and most importantly, how to connect it to everything you already know from previous segments of Entrypoint Academy. Why is it so biologically difficult for us to agree, and how can we change that? To understand this, we need to go back to our mammoth hunter. We need to understand the evolutionary wiring of our brains. For millions of years, humans lived in small tribes. In such a tribe, the most important thing was status, your position in the hierarchy. If you were right, if you won an argument, your status rose. If you admitted a mistake, if you lost a debate in front of others, your status fell. And lower status meant worse food and less chance of passing on your genes. Our brains are therefore evolutionarily programmed to perceive disagreement as a physical attack. When someone tells you at a meeting, "You're wrong," or when your partner tells you, "You did this wrong," your amygdala, the emotional center of the brain, evaluates this as a trigger. "You did this wrong." Your amygdala, the emotional center of the brain, evaluates it as if a tiger had jumped out at you in the jungle. A stress response is triggered. Cortisol and adrenaline are released. Your heart rate increases, and most importantly, logical thinking in the prefrontal cortex shuts down. You go into fight or flight mode. At that moment, you are no longer calculating the equation. At that moment, you are no longer searching for the truth. At that moment, you are defending your ego. You are defending your existence. And that costs us a tremendous amount of energy. Arguing is the most energy-intensive activity the brain can do. You burn glucose, exhaust yourself, and destroy your immunity. And the result? Zero. Entrypoint dialectics is a way to bypass this old program, how to hack your own brain and save energy for what's important, hunting mammoths. To do this, we need to visualize a new model in our minds. Imagine a chessboard. In everyday life, in Model 1, when two people talk about a problem, they behave like two opponents in a tournament. They sit opposite each other. They are separated by a table. One plays white, the other black. One wants to checkmate the other. One must lose so that the other can win. This is the model of a debate. This is the model of politics. This is the model of most divorce proceedings. But the Entrypoint chessboard works differently. It's a cooperative game. Imagine you are sitting across from each other. You are solving a problem. That is the chess position on the board. It could be a drop in sales at a company. It could be raising a child. It could be choosing a vacation. The goal is not to defeat the other person. The goal is to find the best move for the situation together. You both win or both lose together. If the company goes bankrupt, you both lose, even if you were right and the other person was wrong. If you get divorced, you both lose. But there is one crucial catch that few people realize, and that is why misunderstandings arise. Each of you sees only your half of the chessboard. Imagine that there is a fog between you or an invisible wall. On your side, you see your pieces, you see your data, how much money you have in your account, you see your feelings, fear that it won't work out, you see your intentions, I want us to be happy. But you cannot see what the other person has on their side of the board. Therefore, you cannot see the whole position, you cannot see their pieces, you cannot see their data, you cannot see their fear, you cannot see their history. If you start making moves at this point, that is proposing solutions, issuing ultimatums, making decisions, you are doing so blindly. It's like a mammoth hunter throwing a spear into thick bushes just because something moved there. He doesn't know if there's a mammoth there or if it's a member of his tribe. The chances of hitting the right target are minimal. The chances of causing a catastrophe are enormous. The goal of Entrypoint dialectics is not to convince the other person of your move. The goal is to put the whole map together. We have to describe to each other what we see without lying, without embellishment, and we have to admit that our vision may be blurred. Only then we can find the best move. Let's now take a closer look at the 4 filters we talked about, because these are the reasons why we see chessboard blurry and why our equations are wrong. Filter number 1, cognitive bias. Our brain is lazy. It's an evolutionary advantage to save energy. That's why the brain uses shortcuts. Psychology has described hundreds of them, but these 3 are essential for communication. The first is confirmation bias. This is the king of all filters. It works like this. First, you form an opinion, often subconsciously, in a matter of seconds. Then your brain starts looking for evidence in reality that confirms this opinion. And what's worse, it actively ignores and filters out anything that would refute that opinion. If you think your colleague is a slacker, you will see every minute he spends looking at his cell phone, but you won't see the hours he worked hard. Your brain simply won't show you that. It's a blind spot. The second is the sunk cost effect. The longer we do something, the more energy we have invested in our opinion, the harder it is to change it, even if we see that it is not working. This is why people stay in bad projects or relationships. They don't want to admit their previous calculation was wrong. The third is the Dunning-Kruger effect. A fool doesn't know he's a fool. People with low competence tend to overestimate their abilities. They don't have enough data to see everything they don't know. We see this every day on social media. Filter number 2, distortion by the past. Each of us carries our own backpack. Your neural network is programmed by what you have experienced. These are not just memories. These are physical connections in the brain. If you were deceived by a partner in your previous company, your brain created a strong equation, partner equals danger. When you join a new company and meet a new fair person, your brain applies the old equation to them. You will be suspicious of their every decision. You will hear an attack where there is only a question. It's not about what's happening on the chessboard right now. It's about what happened back then, but you're projecting it onto the present. And if you don't realize it, you'll destroy the present because of the past. Third filter, emotional bias. This is pure chemistry. Emotions are nothing more than a cocktail of hormones and neurotransmitters. And this cocktail changes the way your brain processes data. When you are stressed, deficient, or tired, you are in survival mode. Your brain narrows its focus. It only sees threats. A neutral statement from your partner, "Did you take out the trash?" sounds like this in your brain. "You failed again, you're useless." You will hear something that wasn't said because your filter is set to attack. Conversely, when you are euphoric, for example in love or envisioning quick profits, your brain ignores the risk. Everything looks rosy. You sign contracts that you would not sign when sober. At Entrypoint, there is a rule that will save you millions. Never make crucial moves on the chessboard when you are in a strong emotional state. Wait until the chemistry wears off, until you have a clear head. Fourth filter, conscious manipulation. And then there is something that isn't talked about much in a polite society. But we have to be realistic. People lie. People pretend to be something they are not. People wear masks. Remember segment 4 about making money. In business, you often encounter someone who claims to have a turnover of 100 million. He buys expensive cars on lease. He acts like a king. He does this to create a stronger negotiation position, to look like a big shot. In reality, they may be in debt and panicking. If you play chess with such a person and they lie to you about what pieces they have on the board, claiming that to have queen when they only have pawns, you cannot find the best move together. Their equation is false. And this also happens in relationships. We pretend that nothing is bothering us, that we are above it all, that we don't need help. All of this is manipulation of data, and it leads to wrong decisions. So we have a model, a chessboard, 2 players, 4 filters that cloud our vision. How can we put this into practice now? How can we use it tomorrow at work or at home in the evening? Let's look at the details and scenarios that connect everything we have learned. In the first segment, we talked about how thoughts and emotions are not you. They are generated by your brain. This is absolutely critical to know when an argument arises. When someone says something you don't like, your brain, that old mammoth hunter, sounds the alarm. It evaluates it is an attack. It starts to generate anger. Most people ask, how can I disconnect and calm down in the middle of an argument? The answer is tough. You can't. It's too late. When you are in the middle of an argument, when adrenaline and cortisol are already coursing through your veins, your brain is in fight mode. And at that point, you can no longer see the chessboard. All you see is the enemy. The magic of Entrypoint lies in the fact that you have to maintain distance and perspective before the argument even starts. You have to see it coming. You have to see the first signs of your ego starting to bristle. And if you happen to slip and get emotional, you must have learned to recognize the absolute red flag. As soon as you feel a strong emotion, anger, hurt, the urge to lash out at the other person, you must stop immediately. You have to say to yourself, watch out, my brain is now generating a chemical cocktail of defense. I'm not that anger, but until that anger disappears, I am blind. At that moment, you must interrupt the action. There's no point in continuing. You cannot uncover the chessboard when you have a red fog in front of your eyes. Why is this so necessary? Because many people are unwilling to reveal their chessboard when they sense danger. They pretend to be something they are not. They pretend to have a queen on the board when they only have a pawn. They do this out of fear, out of ego. And if you are emotional, they will never admit it. You will never see reality. From a point of view of perceiving health and energy, the price of lies. In the second segment, we discussed energy. Do you know what consumes the most energy? Not physical work, not sports. It's maintaining an illusion. Imagine a person who is a chronic liar, or a businessman who pretends to be a millionaire, but in reality he is in debt up to his ears. Such person lives in constant stress. They have to remember what they said to whom. They have to worry about meeting someone who knows the truth. Their brain is working at 120% just to keep up the facade. Their body is flooded with cortisol. They are tired, sleep poorly, and destroy their immunity. Now imagine a meeting where each of the 5 people at the table is hiding 60% of the information. Everyone is vague. Everyone is watching each other. Such a meeting is an energy hell. People leave exhausted and with 0 results. Entrypoint dialectics is energy conservation. When you create an environment where it is safe to tell the truth, where it is safe to say, I don't know, or I'm afraid, everyone feels weight lifted off their shoulders. The tension disappears, energy is released, and then you can devote that energy to the only thing that makes sense, hunting mammoths. From a point of view of viewing money, how much does theater cost? In the fourth segment, we discuss making money. Let's be honest, unclear communication costs billions. How much money is lost in bribes alone? How much money is lost when someone sells a service at a price that does not reflect its value just because of manipulation? But let's look at everyday business. Imagine a business meeting. You sit there for an hour. You beat around the bush. They beat around the bush. You play games. In the end, you part ways and everyone thinks something different. You think, great. They said they'll consider the investment. That's almost a yes. They think, we said we'll consider it so as not to offend him, but it is a no. And then you wait 3 months, you make plans, you spend money in anticipation of profit, and then comes the cold shower. The deadline has passed. There is no money. Why? Because you didn't see their chessboard. You didn't see that on their side of the table, it's not interest, it's courtesy. Clear communication speeds up the flow of money. If you had asked upfront, what's your equation, what exactly has to happen for you to invest, you might have found out right away that it wasn't going to work, and you would have saved 3 months of your life and a lot of expenses. The speed of trust equals the speed of business. Technique. Equation inspection. Okay, the theory is clear, but how do you do it in practice? How do you ask someone about their calculation without offending them? When you say to someone, why do you think that? It often sounds like an attack, like an interrogation. You have to change your approach. You have to show that you care about understanding, not judgment. The technique that works best for me is mirroring and contrast. Imagine someone tells me 1 + 1 = 3. Most people would say, that's nonsense. It's 2. That's an attack. It provokes a defense. At Entrypoint, I would say, that's interesting. Help me understand. For me, in my world, 1 is 1 piece and 2 is 2 pieces. When I add 1 piece to another piece, I see 2 pieces. How do you see it? What variables did you put in there to get 3? Maybe that person will say to me, well, I count 1 man plus 1 woman, and when they come together, a child is born. So there are 3. And suddenly, flash, he wasn't doing math, he was doing biology. His equation is correct, it just has different inputs and a different context. The key is, first, always be polite. Maintain professional respect even if you know each other. Second, apologize for misunderstanding. Maybe I'm missing something. 3, describe your point of view. I see it this way. 4th, ask for an explanation of their point of view. How do you see it? If you set the expectation at the beginning that we will be honest with each other in order to map things out, people will not be offended. On the contrary, they will be glad that someone is finally listening to them. Deadlock. When we disagree, what if we lay our cards on the table, say everything we have to say, check the equations, and still can't agree? Example, one person wants children, the other doesn't. Or in business, you want to sell for 100, he wants to buy for 50. Is it a loss? No, it's a huge victory. Do you know what the worst thing is? When two sides have different positions, but don't know it. They hope he'll change his mind in time. She'll reconsider, and they struggle with it for years. Deadlock is valuable information. When we say honestly, we don't see eye to eye on this, we save ourselves time. We can shake hands and move on. We may not close the deal, but we can remain friends. We can part ways peacefully instead of hatred after 5 years. And sometimes it leads to a solution that wasn't visible before. Let's go back to the couple with children. Partner A wants a child right away, partner B does not. When they reveal their equations, partner B says, my calculation is not, I don't want children. My calculation is, we don't have the money. I'm afraid we can't afford it. And partner A asks, okay, what exactly needs to change in your equation for you to want a child too? And partner B says, if we had $500,000 in savings, I would feel secure and want a child. And suddenly it's not a deadlock. Suddenly it's a shared goal. Let's earn $500,000 so we can have a family. Always ask what needs to change in your equation for you to get the same result as me. Dialectics versus hierarchy. Many people ask, but George, I can say that to my boss, he'll fire me, or my child won't understand. The truth is that Entrypoint works even where there is no equality. At work, when talking to your boss, imagine that he's not the only one in the room, that the shareholders are standing there invisibly with you, the owners, those who care about the profit. Talk to your boss in a way that doesn't defend yourself, but defends the interests of those shareholders. Say, boss, I see a risk on my board that may not be visible on yours. Can I show it to you so we don't crash and protect the company profits? When you put it that way, it's not arrogance, it's loyalty. You're helping him win. With a child, it's not important whether the child understands all the details of the equation. It's important that they know one thing. Dad, mom is doing this for me to help me. They don't have to understand every variable. It's enough if they understand the intention, if they feel that your equation is set up for their benefit. Crisis intervention, when it doesn't work. And then there is the situation where the other person doesn't want to play. They lie, they yell, they manipulate, they spit on your equation. What to do? Should you be a nice jerk and keep trying? No, Entrypoint is not about naivety. It's a tool for quickly detecting reality. If you show the equation, you are honest, and the other side abuses or rejects it, you have received the most valuable information. I can catch a mammoth with this person. At that moment, it's time to end the game. Leave, find another supplier, another partner, because the energy you would burn trying to break their back would cost you more than the result. Leaving a bad game is also a winning move. Intuition versus calculation. Sometimes you don't have data. You just feel that something is wrong. You have intuition. Where does intuition fit into the Entrypoint equation? Is it magic? No. Intuition is subconscious calculation. Your brain has processed thousands of microsignals so quickly that it didn't have time to send you the process, just the results. At Entrypoint, we don't discard intuition, but we try to unpack it. When you feel this is wrong, ask yourself why. Oh, this person reminds me of a con artist from the past. Oh, this contract looks too good to be true. That's suspicious. Convert your feeling into data. Then you can use your intuition as a probe. You can intuitively guess what the other person has on their board. Doesn't your company also provide services? No, but my brother's company does. Bingo, that's the missing piece. Intuition is your radar. Use it to reveal the hidden parts of the chessboard. Sustainability. Write it down. And last but not least, a critical point. What happens a week after we agreed? Human memory is fallible. Filters, emotions, time will start to change and distort the agreement again. In a month, everyone will remember something different. That's why the rule applies. The new equation must be written down. At the end of every meeting, ask yourself what exactly will happen in the near future and write it down. Take notes, send an email. We agreed on X, you will do Y, the deadline is Z. If it's not on paper, it doesn't exist. I've seen it happen 1,000 times. There were no minutes. 6 months later, we were back to square one. Save your energy. Write down the results of the equations. Society, why we are drowning in noise. And finally, let's look around us. Politics, media, social networks. Today's world forces us to shout only the results. I'm for this. I'm against that. No one shows the equations. No one shows the data. And what's worse, people are ashamed of being wrong. Their ego is tied to their opinion. Imagine a person who has been claiming for years that the earth is flat. They have built their entire identity on this. They have argued with their family, and then they see proof that it is round. What will they do? In the Entrypoint world, they would say, wow, that's great. I had the wrong data. Thanks for showing me the new equation. Now I know it's round. I'm smarter. Let's move on. But in today's world, the person feels ashamed. He feels like he would be a fool, that he would lose his status, and so he rejects the evidence. He starts fighting even more aggressively for the flat nonsense, not because he believes it, but to protect his ego. This cognitive bias, the unwillingness to change one's mind, leads to the downfall of society. It leads to our inability to solve real problems because we are afraid to admit that all solution doesn't work. At Entrypoint, we teach the opposite. An opinion is just the result of an equation, nothing more. When the data changes, the result changes. It's not a disgrace, it's an upgrade. Conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, everything we have said today requires one thing: courage. The courage to say, maybe I'm wrong. The courage to say, this is my fear, not a fact. The courage to put the pieces that aren't pretty on the table, your depths, your insecurities, your past mistakes. But it's the only way to stop playing games against each other, to stop wasting energy on meaningless battles for status, and start playing the game against reality, the game of catching the mammoth. Because when two people, or an entire nation, really sees the same chessboard, when they have the same unbiased data, guess what? They usually agree on the same move, naturally, logically, without a fight. Try it at your next meeting. Try it at home tonight. When conflict arises, stop, take a breath, and instead of saying, you're wrong, say, I see it differently. Let's show each other our equations. In the next 7th segment, we will take this skill to the next level. We will look at how to use this tool to approach one of the most important choices in life, choosing a partner. Because who you choose for your team determine what chessboard you will play for the rest of your life. Thank you.